do today is we're going to put new handlebars on my Street Glide. It's a very long job. There's a lot involved here. So just to make the video a length that is watchable, I'll tell what I'm going to do and show what I'm doing in quick excerpts, but I'm not going to explain every process all the way through, such as like bleeding brakes. You know, I've got other videos on that you can do to bleed brakes, or remove the seat, or disconnect the battery and remove handle grips, things like that. But I will show everything that we do, just not in the details for each process as we go through it like I normally do. All right, one of the first things we got to do is remove the saddlebags and the seat, and then we'll strap the bike down so that as we move around, it's not going to tip off of the jack stand. All right, remove the saddlebags. Next, we're going to remove the seat. You get the strap off first. And then the seat will come right off. Okay, then we're going to strap the bike down, just as a precaution while we start tearing the rest of it down. Try not to pinch any wires when you're doing this. Just be real careful. All right. Okay, now we're going to get down to the battery leads. We're not going to take the battery out. We're just going to disconnect it. So using a T40. We'll take the bolts out that hold the computer on. And that'll get us down to the battery leads. Okay, now you got to take the cover off the battery, which is where the computer sits. This is your computer. So just lift up on the back here a little bit, slide it forward, and it'll pop right off. Now we can get to the battery terminals. Okay, both take Phillips head screwdriver. So remove your hot lead first. That way you can't have arcing take place if it's on while your negative terminal is on as well. So take it off, and you can put a towel on there between the post and the battery terminal. And I'm just going to take the negative off as well. And I'm covering the whole battery. That way we have no chance whatsoever of arcing. Then you can put your computer back down and just let it sit on top. Okay, we've got to take the ignition out. So straighten your handlebars, put it in the fork lock position. Don't lock with your key though. Under there's a pin. Just push up on it and the ignition comes out. Be careful with the spring. There's a spring in there, and then we'll need a wrench to take that off. Okay, use your wrench. Just loosen it. It's not on there tight. Then take that off. That off. That off. Okay, you can also take this off, this cover off. It's going to make it easier to get that control panel off. Reach under it with your nails, just snaps on there. And pull it off. It's a good time to replace this if you want to put a chrome one or something like that on. Use a T25. Coming up here, here's the fairing. There's a bolt on each side. So you just remove those two torques. They're real easy to get on and off. So do that to both sides. Okay, once you get those off, pull this backwards and down and pull it up over the ignition, and you got that off. And then you can just we're going to disconnect the wiring harness from it like that, and then you've got the whole control panel off. It makes it easier to get in there and work. Now you can start seeing the bolts for your handlebars. Once you get this far, it's a good time to go ahead and cover up your tank. Start getting ready to protect, paintable areas, chrome areas, whatever. You got to remove the outer fairing. So I'm going to start up here. I mean, there's all kinds of patterns you can take to do this. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to take the middle one out. I'm going to use that one to hold it on. I'm just going to loosen it though and take these outside ones off. Okay. That will allow me to take my tea bag off. Up in here, there's a bolt on both sides, so you'll have to turn your handlebars to get to each one, but you need to get those out next. Okay, once you get that one off, or both of those onto the forks, you got to move around. There's one under each mirror. You got to take that off. The reason we left the one in the middle on the top of the fairing was to hold the fairing in place while we take those off. Now we got to get the outer fairing off. We've only got one bolt now holding it in place. You can take socks, put them over the lights. That'll prevent you from scratching. I actually got this idea from a comment on my YouTube channel, so thank you to whoever mentioned that. On my bike, because I've got the antenna, the hidden antenna, the receiver that's there prevents you from just pulling it off. So I actually have to turn one of my lamps sideways to get the outer fairing off. So get your wrench, hold on to it. I'll probably just end up throwing this down. There we go. Now you take your windshield off, and while holding your outer fairing, lean it forward. And I got to lift it up over this one lamp. Very good. Then when you come in here, you got to undo it. So there's two buttons to squeeze, and it'll come right off the headlamp. Okay, in order to get to the rear handlebar mounts, you got to remove the radio from the bike. So first thing, you got to cut these zip ties here. There's a couple of them. There's one that holds the wiring harness there and for movement, and then there's another one that goes around. Okay, so once you cut that tie rod off, you can take a screwdriver, come in from behind, lift that tab up, and pull it off, and now you've got your radio disconnected. Pull your antenna off, and then at this point you're ready to take the 4 bolts off that are under here that hold the radio in. Okay, so looking at the at the fairing, with the outer fairing off, I wanted to zoom in. There's 4 bolts to hold that on. So there's 2 on each side, and those are them. So you take those off on both sides and then pull the radio out. Okay, once you get the 4 bolts out that I mentioned, there's wiring harnesses actually tied to it. There's one under here. So you're going to want to make sure that you get that off. There's the handlebar mounts. So at this point, we can actually get to the handlebars now to be able to take them off. But we still got some other things to do. And one of the things I did have to do, I had to disconnect some wiring harnesses because these bolts were very hard to get to. There were some tie wraps here that held all this together. So I also cut those off. You'll have to tie wrap all this stuff back up when you're done. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is take the clutch cable off. I had to grab my glasses for this. Underneath the bottom, there's a snap ring. Get some snap ring pliers, it makes it a little bit easier to get. I may have gotten a little darker. My shop lights are actually blinding me, and I couldn't see the holes for the snap ring. So pull that off. I bought a new snap ring. I've had this off a couple times. Okay, you got the snap ring out. Take the pivot pin out. We got to loosen the clutch cable before we take the clutch lever off. Loosen the jam nut. Roll all the way up. And then you can loosen your clutch cable. Okay, so now you can see we've loosened the clutch cable. So if you come on the inside here and you pull the clutch cable forward, and then there you go, slide that out, pull it forward, and there you go. You got your clutch cable off. Pull that out. I don't know what it's called. And then there's your clutch cable. That's got to be replaced. Might as well just go ahead, cut all the zip ties, that hold that wiring harness onto the handlebars, because we're going to route the cables inside of the new handlebars. Next, we got to get the controls off. So there's some Torx around it. Just take all those off. Once you take this part off that holds your clutch lever, and you open this up to get your wires off. All right, coming around, same thing on the other side. Got it tore down pretty good now. Take your grips off. Here's your throttle by wire assembly. That's going to have to come out as well. Okay, we got to get the throttle by wire loose so that we can get the handlebars off. So if you just trace it to where it comes out of the handlebars, because it does go through the stock factory handlebars, you'll find it comes up to the left side of or the right side if you're sitting on the bike of the fairing. And it comes to this spot here. So first thing, you can just disconnect it there and push down on the tab. That disconnects it. So then just feed it out through the fairing. And there's your throttle by wire assembly. All right, we're almost to a point where we can get the handlebars off. But there's still one thing you got to do. You got to loosen the fairing itself. You have to be able to tip it forward. Otherwise, you can't get a Torx wrench on these two bolts. All right, so in order to get those two bolts, we're going to have to be able to move the fairing around. So the two bolts that hold your passing lamps on are also what holds your fairing on. So you can take those off. You can just let it hang by the cable. This is going to allow you to move that fairing around to be able to get to the bolts for the handlebars. Okay, once you get those off, you can remove this cover in the front, and then what you'll do is you'll push on the frame itself, pull it past the fork, just like that on both sides. That's going to allow you to tilt the fairing and get to those back bolts. Okay, so after we got those bolts out, now you can see you can remove almost the whole fairing at this point. It wasn't for the wires, and that's going to allow you access to all four bolts very easily. At this point, you're going to have to get some help. I got Margaret out here to help me. Using a T40 socket, we're going to loosen all four of these bolts so we can get the handlebars off. Okay, so we're about to get it off. I get the handlebars off, take the last bolt out, roll the fairing up, pull your top cap off, and then slowly pull these out. Your throttle by wire assembly will come with your old handlebars. There you go. One of the things you have to get is an extended throttle by wire. This is a 12 to 15 inch throttle by wire kit. We do have to make the connectors. The reason being is when you pull this out, as you can see, it's not wired, but you got to be able to get it through the handlebars. So you have to wire the plug once you get it routed through your handlebars. So this is from the right side of my bike. Inside of here are some little, they almost look like piano keys, and you can push up and push down on them. And while doing so, you pull the cable, and it comes right out. And that's how you can get all of your pins out of your housing. So you gotta get that notch lined up, and then your pins, or your contacts will slide straight out. We soldered all this together, used shrink fit tubing. We somewhat staggered it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put a big piece of shrink fit tubing now over the whole thing. So one of the things I'm going to do before we start pulling cables through is there's an edge right here as the cable goes in, I don't want this edge to cut my cable. So I'm just going to file this, taper it towards the direction that we're going to be pulling the cable through. And that will help prevent that metal from cutting the cable. Snap in. There it is. And there's your connector. Okay, so now I got to take all the protection off. This was just so we can move it around and not scratch up the handlebars. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and position them on the bike so we can adjust the angle. Try to just get two of them in real quick. That'll hold them. We're just going to snug it down. And we still got to put the seat on the bike and then adjust it to our comfort level. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we're just going to put the seat on, and then we're going to get on the bike and we're going to adjust the handlebars to the position we want. I'm going to actually have to let the bike down though, because I want the bike sitting in its natural state. Okay, so next is get the fairing back on. There it is. We're going to shield back on up here, and you'll feel it snap into place when you get it on the fairing correctly. There it is right there. Okay, start with bottom bolt. Proceed to the other side, tighten it down after you get both of them on. We got to get the master cylinder off because we need to get it on the handlebars, so obviously we can get our new cable. Okay, so we're going to take the master cylinder, we're going to get it on the handle grip. Got to loosen this because that little notch goes into this spot on the brake handle. So we're going to start working on getting the radio back in and getting our harnesses somewhat in the right place. Be careful with this foam, this rubber. This is your seal for the fairing side, so you don't want to mess it up when you're putting it in. And you'll have to work with it until you get it positioned correctly. So there's your radio in. Connect it back up. Basically all I'm trying to do now, I cut some zip ties off, is I'm just trying to route the cable. And then we'll come to this side, do the same thing over here. Already kind of routed it. Snap it in. And we'll probably put a zip tie around here to just hold them, keep them from flopping around. Okay, next we're going to bleed the brake lines, both sides, because we have to replace the brake lines. They're not going to be long enough now with the extended handlebars. Keep in mind though, if you've got anti-lock brakes, you won't be able to do this. You'll have to take it into the shop. There you go. And you will need to make sure that you put new compression fittings on here.
When?
Okay, the brake lines are held on with this junction under here that splits it off. So we've got to take the junction off. Once we get the junction off, we'll be able to pull the brake lines out. And the new brake line kit comes with a new junction. Here's the new brake lines. They're Drag Specialties. This is the old one, the one that came with the bike. Now the bottom part from the junction, I'm going to hold them up together, you can see, is exactly the same length. Okay, but what we need is a length from there up. So you can see this one's about 4 inches longer, and that will give us the length that we need to reach the master cylinder on our extended handlebars. If you come up here, you'll see the new junction, and then here's the new lines. So we got to get these onto the calipers. Make sure you put your compression washers on here that come with the new lines. Try and get it on as much as I can with my finger. There we go. And you have to get a wrench on it and tighten it from there. Get the put the brake line on. You use your banjo, compression washer on the inside. See if we can get it here with the camera. That, and then another compression washer. And then put it on by hand first. Okay, now we got to bleed the brakes. Okay, next thing we got to do is we got to get the clutch cable installed, the extended clutch cable. So in order to do that, we have to take the transmission cover off. All right, we got to take the floorboard off because we're going to have to loosen our pipes and at least move them down so that we can get to the two bolts on the transmission cover, the lower ones, because we're going to want to be able to torque those with a torque wrench. Okay, so we got the floorboard loosened. I don't need to take it off, just loosen it, that's enough. Next we got to start getting our pipes off. We got 2 bolts up here where they go into the heads, 2 here. We'll have to take our slip-on off. We're going to need to loosen the bolt where it goes off to the other side so that we can pull it out of that. And then of course your slip-on bolts here and back here. Took the slip-on off. In order to get the 2 bolts off the pipe going into the head, you got to take your heat shields off. So I went ahead and already loosened the hose clamps for them to get them off. You just pull those off. There you go. I got the pipes almost off. I mean, I can pull them all the way off, as you can see, but you got your catalytic converter here, down here, so you really don't want to take that off. I mean, there's no need to. So at this point, you just let your pipe sit, and we can now get to this. Okay, when you pull this off, you pull these bolts out. There's different lengths. The 2 on top are shorter. You can take a rubber hammer, work it off with that. There we go. And yes, we drained the transmission before we did this. Okay, we're going to take the old gasket off. Make sure you get a new one. Just always replace your gaskets. Avoids any problems later down the road. Alright, so we got to get this snap ring out. We're going to need some snap ring pliers for that. There you go. So now we're gonna get the cable off of this. I don't know the part names on this, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But you just pull straight up on that. And you turn it. So let me turn it this way so you can see. And that's how you get it off. Now there's some ball bearings in here, so you're going to want to take those out, and they sit down in here, and you can take this out as well. That way we can get a wrench on our clutch cable to take it off. Okay, get the cable out. There's an O-ring in there, so we're going to pull it out. We got Drag Specialties. Open it up. There's your boot for your clutch adjuster. There's the little pin that holds the cable into the clutch lever. There's an O-ring that comes with it, so that's good. And of course, here's your cable. Okay, we got to get the boot on before we put the cable on. That covers your clutch adjustment area with your jam nut. Okay, so we're going to route it now. Following the same route that it came off where the old one was in. Get your O-ring on here. Put a little lube on it. That'll keep it from bunching up on you or cracking when you put it back into the housing. This goes first. This holds the ball bearings. There's a notch that sits right in there. Harley Davidson recommends putting high quality grease in each one of these little notches to hold the ball bearings in place. Because you don't want these things sliding out and rolling around when you're trying to put this back together. You'll feel them sit in a little notch inside of there, and you'll know that you've got it on, or the ball bearing's in the right spot at that point. Then you got to put your cable on. So take this, turn it that way. Turn it, it locks it. Twist it around. And it goes straight down on there. It can only go one way. And it'll fall right down into place when you have it in the right spot. And you're going to tape your snap ring pliers again.
Right now for you win tickets. See a little big ten at the House of Blues on May the 3rd. 888-771-9630.
Don't worry about the damage done. Just let those words roll off your tongue. And if you lie, if you really don't mean it, I don't care. If you need a little fun to get you
Now Harley says, and I don't know why, that you're supposed to leave the notch where it's open there on your snap ring. So I'm going to do it just because it says to. Okay, make sure you clean your area real good where your gasket's going. Okay, with your new gasket, there's some little pins here. That'll hold it into place. can use those little pins to align it before you put your bolts in. You can come up here.
And support the team with a Texas homestyle burger, topped with tomato, lettuce, pickles, onions, and spicy.
Okay, so that was it. Last thing you're going to want to do is obviously turn the bike on, check all of your electronics. I've already done so, but just for sake of the video, we'll go ahead and start it. Those were just some of the controls. Like I said, I've already done a thorough inspection of all electronics. So that means your radio, your gauges, high beams, low beams, everything. That's the whole process. It's not an easy task. It's probably the hardest task I've ever done on my bike. So if you're going to do something like this, make sure you do your research before you even begin, and what it's going to take to do the job.